Is your disposition exposing your true spirituality? Hey guys, it's John here in my living room the day before Thanksgiving, and I know this will come out several days after, but I'm sitting here drinking my John's Joe, enjoying a magnificent mug of that coffee. Get yours in the link below. I wanted to talk about disposition. Had a really interesting experience the other day. I was dealing with an issue on my John's Joe coffee business, and I had messed up my connection to PayPal. I contacted Shopify, who does my actual processing and works directly with the roasteries and does that for me. So that basically is how that part of the business is run. But I contacted them, and they were very impersonal. It took me a hard time to get to a live person. And once I got to that live person, it was very obvious that a live person was just reading a script of things they're supposed to say in certain situations. They weren't actually affecting any real help. They said I had to go talk to PayPal, and the first contact with PayPal, they said their automated system said there was nothing I could do. And I go back and say, well, their automated system says there's nothing I can do. They said, well, you should take these codes and go back to them. So it was back and forth. It was just, I felt like I was getting really run around. Finally, I get back to PayPal, and I get a hold of an actual person. And she was so kind and so pleasant. And she said, I said, oh, I have all these reference numbers. She says, you won't need them. I can make this happen for you really quickly. And I said, oh, thank God. She started laughing. I started laughing. We started joking. She was so pleasant, so kind. So her disposition was just light. It was just light. And I told her, I said, I love your disposition. I love how you are. You know, you obviously are a kind, caring person, and I really appreciate the way you're handling this situation with me, because I was not getting that experience on the other platform. And we joked and laughed, and she ended up finding out about my YouTube channel and everything else. But in Matthew, the book of Matthew, they talk about false prophets. And one of the things it says is you will know them by their fruit. Well, their fruit is your disposition. Your fruit is your disposition. How are you perceived in the world? How do other people find you? I found her lovely and charming and just a wonderful conversationalist. And I felt like I was heard. That is the fruit that she is bearing. She is bearing this fruit of just joy and positivity and genuine concern for the person she's talking to. And to me, that is the fruit that she's bearing. So in my mind, no matter what her spiritual beliefs are, she has found a connection to God. She has found this joy and this compassion, and the fruit that she is bearing to me shows that it's sweet and it's light and it's beautiful. When our disposition falls into anger, sadness, frustration, and bitterness, sarcasm, pessimism, that is the fruit you're bearing. That is the fruit you're showing to the world. And that disposition is a disposition because it's not a positive position of love. The reason I wanted to make this video is because of that interaction. That interaction showed me a person who was, whether she knew it or not, was broadcasting love. Her disposition was to be light and airy and fun and loving and caring. And that was such an amazing thing to encounter. A person who was so loving and caring at a time when I was dealing with an issue, and they were just like, here, I'm going to alleviate that issue for you. And I'm going to do it without getting stressed or anxious. I'm going to do it without succumbing to anybody else's mess ups in this situation. I'm just going to listen to you. I'm going to hear what the problem is, and I'm going to solve the issue. And that to me was just so beautiful. So what is your disposition? Okay. Now I said disposition meaning a disposition, but what is a disposition? A disposition is how you portray yourself into the world. It's how you are perceived. But it comes from within you, how you are presenting yourself to the world. Now, the world itself, as we know, is just an illusion of belief, because we know it's just atomic energy in motion. We know it's nothing here that's solid, according to Einstein and all those scientist folk, right? We know that this is just an illusion of belief. We know that negative people see a negative world because they believe the world is negative, so they always see a negative world. Positive people always have something positive to talk about because they see a positive world, because they believe in a positive world. And their disposition is based upon their belief, right? What you think you become, you create your world, is what the Buddha said. If you think negatively, your disposition will be negative, and that will be counterproductive to what you're delivering to the world. Now, if you want to create true connection to spirit, then what you want to do is be as loving as you can be as often as you can be, because God is love. The source of all is love, and fear is just the illusion of its absence. So your idea of delivering love and caring and compassion and not being sucked into the stories of negativities others are going through is directly tied to your own spiritual beliefs. What do you believe about spirit? What is spirit? Spirit is the non-corporeal. The physical is the corporeal. It's the stuff, right? But the spirit is the non-corporeal. And that disposition of kindness and love and compassion is non-corporeal. It's not physical. It's just a simple feeling. It's just a simple feeling that you are conveying and they are receiving or feeling. When you're finding yourself in one of those negative states, or that pessimistic state, or that sarcastic state, or that antagonistic state, take a second and exhale and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel these negative emotions, and why am I projecting these negative emotions outward? And if you could just stop and exhale, you suddenly realize that those are just fears. Those are just anxieties, and anxiety is just fear. Those are anger, and anger is just fear. There's a fear associated with all negative emotion. And when you come to realize that you can, in that moment, not succumb to the fear by simply letting the air out of your body and exhaling, coming back to that place where the primal fight or flight says suck air in, coming back to that place and letting that air out, what happens is you shut off that fear response and you feel better. And then you start to look at the other person and say, how can I help that person? What can I do for this person? How can I be more loving? How can I be more caring? And suddenly your disposition becomes loving and caring and compassionate and able to work and help. That's really the key to having a positive disposition, is coming back to the space of realizing that your spirituality is based in love, not in fear. And but by staying in love rather than fear, you are creating a disposition that is very kind to the world, kind to the people around you, and you become the bright spot in the world for people to emulate. So how does your disposition be shown to the world? It shows through your attitude, through your mood, and how you present those things to the world. That's basically it. Your emotions of fear, anger, disgust, sarcasm, antagonism, all those things are what you are presenting. And the world shows you a reflection of what you present. And when you look at that presentation that you're giving, and you're seeing people who are not reacting well to you, ask yourself, why aren't they reacting well to me? Because they're reacting to you. You be more kind, you be more loving, you be more caring, you create a world of joy and love and laughter. And what happens is you have surrounded yourself with a world of joy and love and laughter because people stop being afraid of you. When that woman on PayPal started laughing and joking with me, I was like, this is no longer a fight. This is no longer me trying to solve an issue. This is me having a partner who's helping me solve a technicality. Everything diminished to something much easier when the person across from me was not giving me a negative disposition or a neglectful disposition. Like the first company was so looking at their scripts and things they're supposed to say at certain times, I didn't feel connected to that person because they weren't being authentic. They weren't being a real person. And this person on PayPal was absolutely being a real person. And I absolutely adored that. A lot of people say, well, I am a loving and compassionate person. But the interesting thing is they say I'm a loving and compassionate person. Or a lot of times in my private session, they say they know everything that I'm talking about. But knowing and doing are two different things. I am a compassionate person. I hate those people over there. It's not compassion. You know, I'm a compassionate person. Can you believe this government's doing this? That's not compassion. You're not being the compassionate person that you're declaring yourself to be. And that is a cognitive dissonance. You're literally saying one thing but meaning another, right? You're saying one thing and acting another. You're saying one thing and creating another. It's a matter of taking these two elements of your words and your thoughts and your deeds and combining them as one. Thoughts, words, and deeds are the creative tools of the present moment. And you take those creative tools in the present moment and you act out of love and compassion, you get that in return. But a lot of people will, especially people in the spiritual communities, will say they're loving and compassionate, but in reality they're not. In reality, they're still judging. They're still calling people out for certain. They look at people of different color and they say something where they think of people who with different sexual orientations, and you go, "Wow, that's wrong because that's a sin." That's not loving. That's judging someone when a lot of times your faith will tell you don't judge. So that is an outer expression of a belief that's not loving and compassionate. And so your disposition is not loving or compassionate. That is the key to this. If you are loving and compassionate and your disposition is light and fresh, like a loving and compassionate person would be, then what happens is the world sees you as loving and compassionate. And the only way that happens is if you marry your thoughts, words, and deeds together behind loving and compassionate. And understand that love and compassion is for all men. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. Right? And that's really the key to this. The golden rule: treat others as you would want to be treated. Right? Think about that for a second. When you're antagonistic, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're doing all those things, are you treating that person the way you would want to be treated? That's your disposition. What you're showing them is your disposition. And so it's a matter of you understanding that you don't have to be taken advantage of, but you don't have to be attached to the anger and the frustration and the fears that are associated with a circumstance. That's just the stimulus. How you react to it is up to you. You have responsibility. In the Bible, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." Right? And that stillness, that calm within yourself, is what creates the outer expression. That disposition of calm, peace, and clarity, that disposition of compassion and love, that energy that you are embodying is the reflection of your disposition. And you get to choose the energy. You get to choose if you're compassionate or afraid or judgmental. You get to choose. It's up to you. You get to take the energy of your life and make it loving or compassionate or fearful. And when you make it loving and compassionate, you will have a brighter disposition. Understand that the greatest way to find out what your disposition is to look how people are reacting to you. Look at how they react to you. Oftentimes people, they want to be loved, or they're striving to be loved, or they think they're a victim in life, and the world shows them being a victim in life. Well, their disposition is that of a victim, that of someone who's taken advantage of. They are putting out to this world the feeling of that, and so they're getting that in return. They're also, oftentimes, they read things into what people say that aren't there because that's all they can see, because that is what they're believing, and that is what shows in the world. So it's a matter of understanding that you are in control. You are in control of what you put out. You are your own press release. You get to put out the loving, compassionate person that you are inside, but release all the attachment to the things that make you feel bad. Because the more you release, the more the world will surround you with lightness. So let's talk about the signs of a spiritually aligned disposition. First of all, there's calmness. You stay calm in situations. You don't allow yourself to get run off into a tizzy about some topic. You just exhale and you're listening and you're hearing, and you're not reacting. You're staying calm in those moments of what would seem to be conflict, but in reality, you're just information. You stay calm in those situations. Okay, what's this? Okay. How do we solve that? 9 times out of 10, when a situation comes to you, it's coming to you from another person. And if you were to stay calm and be still and listen, you would very quickly discover what they're afraid of. You'd start to decipher, what are they afraid of? And once you realize what they're afraid of, and you can go, oh, but if you did this, would that solve the problem? And they go, well, yeah. And you see them exhale because you've solved the problem rather than being a part of the problem and helping it escalate by being reactive to it. So true alignment with your spirituality is to remain calm in all situations. Another sign is to have genuine empathy. Feel for others, and take action upon those feelings. Show that as just simple kindness. You're kind to people because you feel what they need. You feel their experience. You're like, oh, what are they going through? How can I help? What can I do? What fear can I alleviate within them to help them come to the calm that I have? And your disposition is this calm, steady, as a rock foundation that's reliable. The more calm and steady you are, and the more you listen, the more reliable you become. And people go, oh, they're just rock solid. And that is faith. If your faith is rock solid, then you project calm and empathy and kindness, because that is really the key to that disposition. That calm, that empathy, that kindness is what delivers compassion and love to the world. Another thing about having a more spiritually aligned disposition is the sense of gratitude and humility. You're grateful to be able to be there and help. You're happy to be able to help, but you also know that it's not an ego-based idea. Ego only meaning your self-identity. It's a I am here to help the world, the oneness of all, to help this person across from me who I am one with. You have this sense of gratitude and humility because you know it's more than you. That just delivering that feeling and that disposition in the world is more than you, because you're putting that feeling into the oneness of all. And so that's a sign. That gratitude and that humility is a direct sign of you being connected to that beautiful disposition that you can carry into the world. Another sign is that you have a joyful presence. You laugh, you're just happy, you come across as just someone who is really in a good mood, and you're really delivering a positive message just by your being. That joyful presence is a direct sign of your disposition, because your disposition is what is perceived on the outside. And you being joyful in your present moment delivers that disposition, that joyful experience to the people around you. That lady in PayPal was so joyful and so loving. I had to remark on it because it was that effective for me personally. So think about that as part of your disposition. And that is one of the signs, is you being joyful. And the last sign of this is that you're authentic. You're real, and you have integrity. What you say, you do. Right. My son, as long as I've known my son, which is his whole life, um, I'm never late to pick him up. I'm never late to pick him up. And I remember when he was in high school, I'd go to pick him up at school, and I was always sitting outside. I was always the first car in line because I arrived 15 minutes early, and I'm there just ready because I have a thing about time. If I tell someone I'm going to be there at that time, I'm there at time. And I remember one time I was driving, and I was actually running late, and it was 1 minute, 1 minute before I was supposed to pick him up, and my phone rings, and my son says, "Where are you?" I go, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I got out a little bit early, and you're not out here." I said, I'll be right there in a minute." I turned the corner, and I got there right on time. But he was so aware that I'm early, that I show up early, and when I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there. Come hell or high water, right? But I found it really interesting that I was 1 minute behind where he thought I should be, and he was already calling. "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you alone?" Right? My integrity is I told you I would be there at that time, and so I was at that time there. And when you look at it from that perspective, you realize that you in your life, if your word is good, you have just delivered a disposition to people of reliability. You've just delivered a disposition of someone who does what they say. You've just delivered a disposition of someone who is solid. And that disposition ripples throughout your entire life and your experience. So, what are some of the common barriers to having a positive disposition? The first, of course, is stress and being overwhelmed in life. Those experiences of being stressed out and overwhelmed are the experience of not being able to get something done. You've got so much stuff piled on top of you. You're going to fail. You're not going to be able to do it. What is that? That's the fear of not being loved in some form, not being able to accomplish either loving yourself or having someone else approve of you or give you validation for getting things done. That's what that stress and anxiety is. The interesting thing is that stress and the anxiety, if you let it affect your disposition, your entire process gets longer and harder because now you're focused on how bad things are rather than saying, okay, I'm just going to chunk this out. This is going to be good. I'm going to knock all these things out one at a time. Bing, 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 bing. The more positive you stay in your disposition, the faster the job gets done because you're not struggling with the stresses and the barriers. You have to remember, fear is always a paralyzer. It doesn't inspire you to move faster. It paralyzes you. People get, that's why deers get, stare at the headlights because they are paralyzed in fear. So it's a matter of you understanding that the more calm you are in those situations, and the more just, okay, I'm going to get this done. And you just stay in the process of knocking things off that list, your disposition will be shown to not only be an asset to the group you're working with, but an asset to you getting it done faster because now you're not limited by the fears and the anxieties of the paralyzation of fear. Another one is simply insecurity. We look at our lives as, we have jobs that we have to have a certain amount of money in, and we start to think about the insecurity of not being safe in this situation. If I don't do this, I'm going to lose my job. Well, you're focusing on losing the job rather than doing it. And so your disposition is fear and anxiety and stress. So you look at the situation, you go, okay, I'm going to create this world from staying calm and secure within myself. And I'm just going to get things done. Somebody comes up and they're mad and they're angry and they're stressed. You go, okay, I'm handling it. You don't have to get into their stress and anxiety. That's theirs, not yours. Let go of theirs. Don't live their story. Live your own. Your own is calm, cool, collected, and productive. And you just chunk it out, right? But that disposition of fear and anxiety from the insecurity is just going to hold you up again. Another one is your negative self-talk. Your whole life you've been taught that you're unworthy or unloved or unlovable. You're born in sin. All kinds of things. And that negative self-talk isn't yours. That's from past experiences with people who have told you that. Put a period at the end of that chapter. Come back to this moment and choose to decide that you're writing a comedy instead of a tragedy. And get into that lightheartedness of just comedically, joyfully getting through this process. And that negative self-talk goes away because now you've released that subconscious belief from your past that's telling you you're not worthy, that's telling you that you're a bad person, that's telling you those things. Yesterday is done, nothing changes back there. Today is the day that you can create anything you want, and you can create joyfully and live a life that's joyful as you do good, productive work. Another thing is you might be in a toxic environment or societal pressures knocking you down, right? The interesting thing about that is nothing can harm you without your permission. None of those things matter without you giving it permission to let it affect you. The interesting thing is that if you stay positive, the toxic environment changes around you. If you stay positive, the societal pressures change because no one's trying to do a power play to make you feel less than. They can't make you feel less than unless you choose to let them make you feel that way. It is all about you and your disposition of saying, so oftentimes people will say things to me, that are saying, well, you can't say that. And I'm like, you don't have the right to tell me what I can't do, right? I don't give them the power over me. That's just a choice to let them say say you can't and then say, oh, I'm so sorry. No, that's just subjugation. And I'm not subjugated by anybody. That's why I speak exactly my truth in this channel. And I never, ever sway to someone else's decisions. People have often told me what I can and can't say. You can't say that. Well, yes, I can, because I just did, right? I'm not in any way stressed about the societal concerns or the peer pressure or even the toxic people who come at me from their own belief systems. it doesn't bother me because once again, their disposition is to be toxic, and mine is to be light and airy, and I just don't allow their toxicity to affect my world. And so let go of the idea that anybody outside of you has control over who you or who you are. Take your control of your disposition and hold that positive outcome. And so next thing you know, the ones who won't feel like they can subjugate you, they will go away. It always happens that way. They leave because if they they don't feel they're getting powerful over top of you, then they just go away because they go find somebody else to subjugate. And so let go of anybody else's judgments on you because that's theirs, not yours. You write your story the way you want to write your story and make it joyful and loving, and your disposition will show that. If they can't handle it, they got a problem. One practical tip I'd like to give is when something from outside of yourself is coming in, be it the work environment, the societal environment, the negative people, any of those things, and give yourself this one simple tool. Exhale. Before you do anything, just exhale, because what happens is that stimulus makes you have the fight or flight response. Should I run or should I fight? And in both of those situations, they're based in fear, and you draw air into your lungs and you're holding that air. If you shut off that primal response, you turn your cognitive reasoning back on, and you can look at them and go, so what's their fear? And you can start thinking, why would they say that way? Why would they think that about me? And you start to listen and you start to hear that number one tool, and you hear it in all my videos, exhale, right? The number one tool is to simply exhale, is to live into this experience of this joyful compassion and find this space of understanding that no matter what comes at me, if I exhale, I don't feel that stress and that anxiety anymore. And I can have a disposition of calm. And then I can choose to say, so sorry you feel that way. What can I do to help you? Or, oh, do you mean that you're afraid this is going to happen? And they go, well, yeah. I go, well, how about if we did this, 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 this? Would that alleviate that fear? Well, yeah. And you see them exhale and you see them relax. You become the delivery method of love that wipes out their fear. Perfect love drives out fear, right? So you be the perfect love to drive out that fear, and that disposition of perfect love makes the world around you less fearful. And so remember to exhale whenever you feel that negative stimulus come into your life. Another practical tip to change your own personal disposition. Next time you're out in the world and you see and just look around, pay attention to what's happening around you. See someone drop something, walk over and pick it up and say, here you, hand it back to them. See someone struggling to load something heavy, go over and help them. Start doing these kind acts, because when you do a kind act and that person turns to you and says, thank you so much, I really needed help, it makes you feel good. And the more kind acts you deliver, the more your disposition becomes grateful and joyful and loving and optimistic, because you're delivering kindness. Kindness is being delivered back to you with appreciation. And the more you deliver that kindness into your world, your disposition will grow exponentially, because you are being the kindness that facilitates that disposition. Another thing you can do is find people you like. Hang out with people with dispositions you enjoy. Find people you love and you laugh with and you joke with, and surround yourself with those people, and put yourself in situations when negative people come into the experience. Don't bash them. Don't judge them. Don't get into well, they're a terrible person. Don't get into any of that. Just yeah, whatever. You just keep going. The less attention you give them, the faster they will either change or become or leave the experience. And it really comes down to you not feeding them by reacting to them in a way that empowers their fear. So it really comes down to surround yourself with people who are positive and caring and loving and compassionate. And the people who aren't will self-eject. When you align yourself with a positive disposition, you receive a harmony within and without. you come to a place of understanding that that calmness within you is because it's a chosen disposition. I've chosen to be loving. I've chosen to be caring. I've chosen to be kind. But there's a calmness that comes with that. And that calmness is within and without. Struggle comes with fear. And the disposition of love and kindness drives out fear. And so suddenly you become very calm. And you're in that state of that bliss. Now, what is, bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth? Well, that's love, right? Achieving nirvana. That's that perfect harmony, that perfect paradise, right? All of those things are a state of being. Paradise for me is a beach. For somebody else, it's a mountain, right? It's not the place; it's the feeling it engenders. And your disposition, and your disposition is based solely upon your feeling within. And the more kind, and the more compassionate, and the more loving you put out, your disposition within becomes calm and easy and nice to be around. Because that calm, easy, nice to be around gives you the feeling that is directly connected to your connection to God, to source, to consciousness, to yada yada, right? Whatever you want to call it. That calm that comes with a loving disposition is the direct connection to your spirituality. It's a direct connection to the source. And it is the way you implement that source into the world by delivering that love through your disposition. If God is love and we all want to connect to the divine source or to connect to God, then the way you connect to God is by being love, by being that joyful, loving compassion. Spirituality is not a mantra, a method, a modality, a religion, whatever. It's none of those things. It's the way you are in the world. It's the way you're being in the world. Spirituality is what you deliver, and the disposition is the outward expression of what you're delivering. You put out that positive, joyful, loving light, and the world shows you that positive, joyful, loving light around you because you are creating that into reality. And it comes back to understanding that to be truly spiritual is to be known by your fruit. And the fruit you're delivering, if it's negative, will show negative. And if it's positive, will show positive. But if God is love, God is positive, and fear is the negative. The Buddha said the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. So you break the fear cycle and you come back to love. You bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, and you become that disposition that delivers that love. You become the delivery method of God just by being loving, being caring, and having a disposition of someone who's loving and caring. And being that disposition of someone who's loving and caring, you become a bright spot in the world for others to choose to become bright spots around you. You can't save the world, but you can save your part of it by making it as bright as you possibly can. Be that loving disposition that makes your part of the world bright, and the people around you will lighten up. And that's really the key to this, is that you're not only connecting with your source when you're being loving, but you're helping others connect with that source as well. And that's done through your disposition. So ask yourself this simple question: what am I delivering to the world? What is my disposition? When people look at me, are they seeing someone loving, kind, caring, who's willing to lend a helping hand to anybody? Or are they seeing someone who's judging, hateful, harmful, sarcastic, antagonistic, someone who's saying you have to believe like I do because this is the only way, and trying to save people from their spiritual beliefs because yours is the only right way? That is all just fear and anger and frustration, and not accepting people as they are, not loving your fellow man or woman or gay person or black person or Chinese person, or whatever nationality. It you know if you have those judgments within you, you're not being loving. You're not being caring. If you have those judgments within you and you find them that they're there, that's the first thing you should work on. Understanding that that person across from you who looks differently from you, who loves differently from you, is a person who wants to be loved as well. Everybody on earth wants to be loved unconditionally. And if your love has a lot of conditions on it, then you're the one showing them a negative world. Then your disposition is not loving. Your disposition is the conditions. And you can release those conditions by just choosing to be loving. Look at every person as another expression of God. Look at every person as part of God. We are the Sitsat key, as they say in Hinduism, the individual sparks of consciousness within God. The Father and I are one, and you must become one with me as I am with the Father. He's talking about all of us being one, right? Mother Teresa said every day she goes into the streets and she looks into the face of Jesus in all of his distressing masks. She understood that she and Jesus were one, and everybody else was one with Jesus and her. And she looks into the face of the oneness of God, which she defines as Jesus, and she sees all the distressing masks of the oneness of God, right? And her disposition is, I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. I'm here to create a different outcome through love and compassion. And her disposition is calm and serene and helpful. Was, anyway. So, guys, understand, I am so grateful for you. And I am so grateful for the ability to send these messages out. And I'm so grateful that they're so well received. And understand that they are meant to be sent out with love and compassion. Every video I make is meant to serve someone. It might not be you on this one, it might be somebody else. But every video I make is meant to be delivered with love and compassion. And I hope it's reaching the ears who needed to hear this. And I'm grateful that you are hearing it. And I'm happy that you can change your own life in some small way to create a better disposition for yourself. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.